we doing today?
I don't even know where I end and they begin. Let me show you some beauties. The colors of Amanita Muscaria. Isn't that beautiful? My babies, I love them. They smell amazing. Do you smell it?
I mean, I smell it. Amazing is not the word I would
smell
use.
like bread.
Like bread?
You don't think so?
It smells like a crotch. But I don't hate it. You know what I mean?
Know,
like
it's nice. I
like
it.
There's a closeness there.
Closeness. Yeah. Did you know that if you are in the same room where the dehydrator is, where these are drying, you will get high as fuck?
In like a good high?
Yeah.
So how powerful is that? Like, is there a cubic foot?
I don't know, because
deal?
The times that it's happened to me, I was just foraging around the clock because there were just so many fruiting. And it's happened to me 3 times now where there were just so many and they were backed up, like racked and waiting and not even racked yet and still in piles and in baskets, like just full of them everywhere and multiple dehydrators running and just sleeping just to get the sleep. And so just to get up and keep working. And I've woken up just in this blissful state of euphoria and unreality where I feel like I'm just sort of being controlled by the mushroom and living in their space and in their sphere, and they're in me and I'm sort of in their world now. And I feel unreal, unhuman, and very in touch with fungal intelligence. And it's a very rare, beautiful place to be. And there's no other feeling like it in any other way that I use this mushroom. It is very unique to the dehydration process and being around them.
Where are you picking them?
One time, and that happened here in North Georgia because the Persicinas were fruiting the year that they found me 5 years ago now. This October will be 6 years ago. That was in Canada.
That was neato.
It turned into a 4-day forage, but I had to leave. I had to come back home, but I foraged for 24 hours straight. Simon was my host up there. And he was the one who's like, I think they're fruiting. We need to go. And he drove me like from Calgary all the way through Banff and down into Vancouver and all that stuff and helped me get a lot of interviews and stuff that I was up there to get. And I was like, come on, man, they've got to be fruiting. They got to be. And we drove and drove looking for them. We were about to give up when we just hit the mother lode and they just kept going and go. They were everywhere.
What forest, like, and what tree, like what type of forest? Was it a mixed hardwood forest?
Cedars. It was holy. I understand religion now in a way that I haven't since I got out of the church I was raised in that I hated for the damage it did to me.
Yeah.
That now that I know this mushroom, I understand and fully believe that the original beginnings of religion was probably just from some narcissistic, maniacal people who worshipped Amanita.
Yeah.
And went off the deep end in a really bad direction with it because lots of religious terminologies fall off my tongue when I'm talking about it. Like it was a holy experience to be in the presence of those cedars. It felt like real church to be in the halls of those cedars and all of those mushrooms speaking this beautiful language and singing this song. Now I understand where hymns come from because these mushrooms sing and you can hear them. And when I used to talk like that in my early foraging videos, you know, this bitch is off her rocker, you know, what the fuck is crazy? What the fuck is wrong with it? Until more and more people were like, oh shit, I want to go hear that too. And then I'm getting that feedback like, oh my God, I hear them. What is that? Why can I hear that? And it's something I don't get with too many other mushrooms. There have been times where I can sort of hear a little bit, But the Amanita, the conversations, the talking, the singing, it's unbelievable. And I really thought it was me, except being Amanita Dreamer puts me in a position to hear from thousands of people. And after another, they're just coming to me going, is this normal? And then they describe how the mushrooms, they're driving, minding their own business, and they just get this feeling they need to turn right, turn right, turn right. And they do. And then there's this red mushroom and they're like, oh, what's that? And then they learn what it is. And they're like, did that mushroom call me? I hear this over and over and over. And people that catch fruitings of them, they're like, they're singing. They're singing. I know, I hear it.
They are the icon. They are the everything in terms of how we recognize mushrooms. There's video games. I mean, just think about right now that it's the Mario mushroom. And people don't even know anything about mushrooms right now these days at all. Think about when mushrooms were more important to our societies. When we think of forest mushrooms, that's the one we think of. It's nobody knows what a bolete looks like or a chanterelle, really. Everybody knows the Mario mushroom. They don't know it's Amanita muscaria, but fly agaric is something people know more so. But you talk about that Mario mushroom.
I talk about Amanita being the power mushroom. One of the first things that it did for me, because I was suicidal, and I got there by becoming smaller and lesser over my lifetime, because when I was little, I was just, oh my God, the world's a great place. And I was just me all over the place. But when you're autistic, the world's like, don't be like that. That's not normal. That's not right. You act like that. Quit acting like that. And after enough of that, I was gone. And I became this mask of things that I was supposed to be. This is how you act. And even then I would fail at it and get shamed. And eventually I just became a shell of what a human being is supposed to be. And I was living in a constant state of panic and anxiety. I didn't know it. I thought everyone lived like that.
Did you treat that with pharmaceuticals at the time before?
It was Hurricane Katrina. And when my world just fell in and I was in the corner panicking, and couldn't move and wasn't functional anymore, that I got on benzodiazepines. And they made me functional for a while, until they didn't work anymore, trying to get off of them. But I think that becoming suicidal at that point was the diminishing of a person over a lifetime of your life force, power, greatness, energy, motivation, zest to be. What children have, the way they automatically lift that head up, like hours after being born, they're trying to get that head up. Yeah. Like, my God, look what you just went through. You can rest.
Yes.
But they, humans are immediately like, get up, get vertical. And that drive to say no at 2 years old. Why at 4? There's this thing. What is that thing? And that thing we don't give a name to. But it's a drive to exist in the biggest and best way that you possibly can. Every child does it. They are themselves fully. And then they have to deal with the world saying, don't do that. Be more of this, be less of that. Some people, that's okay. They handle that really well. Some people, they are born being pretty normally likable by society standards. But people like me that aren't, eventually that life force energy, that need to ask questions and exist fully and move and be and express, when you start to snuff that out, you can't remove that from the inner sense of beingness. That is your beingness. That's that thing that we don't have a name for, this life force energy, this will. And by the time someone is suicidal, that has been killed. It takes a lot to kill the drive to be fully embracing the world and going and being what you want to be. That's a powerful force. And by the time that's gone, that didn't happen overnight.
Well, tell me about the first time you used Amanita muscaria. Was it?
I found it. It was just in the woods, and I found it, and I did a lot of research and found out that they fruit all at once. So I went out driving and found a bunch of them. And that was the first time that I got this feeling like something is happening in my house and I don't know what it is. And I was still suicidal. I was still in the throes of coming off benzodiazepines and couldn't live with them and couldn't live without them and was just hated my life and wanted to die every day and would wake up and go, fuck, like, why can't I die? Like, how much does it take to die here? I just really want to go. And then when I started drying them in another room, I'm on the other end of the house from them and they're, but still I would wake up in this place of like, I can't wait to go see them. I want to go look at them. And I hadn't taken them yet. I was obsessed with them, with looking at them.
There's an immediate dopamine release when you look at mushrooms. Have you
really?
Noticed that? There is.
Really?
And it doesn't matter if it's in the forest. It doesn't matter if they're drying. And you get the same dopamine from plants. From pets, there's just things that we love. But in my life, there's been nothing like a fresh mushroom on the forest floor. And Amanita persicina that I found was my favorite.
Even that first one I found all by itself.
Yeah.
Never found another one in that spot, by the way.
Really?
It grew by itself and not another one ever came up there again. I check every year.
Oh, yeah.
Even it, because I didn't have a dehydrator, I ordered one. But even it just, I opened the stove and like set it up on top of the stove so that the heat from it could sort of get to it. I went to bed thinking about it. Wow. And the first thing I did when I woke up was ran to go look at it and then got in the car and just went out looking for more. And then got that dehydrator and started racking them up and just, I was touching them and looking at them and just, what is this? What is this? What is this? So beautiful. They're so amazing.
Well, and had you been into mushrooms prior to this?
No, I didn't know anything about mushrooms at all. I hated them. I was afraid of them.
The most advanced mushroom as your first introduction.
It's the easiest to identify. It's a beginner's identification mushroom.
But for processing, I'm going to say it's advanced.
For working with it, it's one of the more advanced ones. And it was so magical just being around them. And I started crying at one point. And over those days that I was working with them, processing them, drying them, I developed that relationship so that by the time I really needed to cook them, to use them, to extract them, it felt pretty good to be able to say, how do I do this?
Right.
And that's the first time I ever asked a question and waited for the answer from a mushroom because I just didn't know what else to do. Because all of the information online was conflicting and made no sense. It was directly opposites information. And then this over here out of left field. And then this other thing opposite that. And I'm like, what? Why don't I just go to the mushroom? And I just laid them out there and I was like, just tell me. And like, they were very detailed that when they said, about a cup of water should do it. And about 15 grams, about 20, 30 minutes, you'll be all right.
You'll be all right.
Yeah. Right. It's really easy. And I was like, okay. And I was shaking because I'm sitting here talking to a mushroom and actually putting my life on the line and what I'm about to do on the line with this imaginary conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I have really lost my mind. Like, if this kills me or I have a shitty experience and I have to go to the hospital, like, I won't be surprised because I am already so far gone emotionally and mentally, like I'm suicidal and about to remove myself from the planet anyway. It wouldn't surprise me that I'm really that nuts. Like, I'm really gone. I am Tom Hanks on an island talking to a soccer ball. And it just felt right to a crazy person. And I tried it and nothing happened. And I took a little more and I got a little shaky. And then I took a little more and I got tired of getting scared. Like, this was going on an hour and a half of being scared of it because I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was like, you know what? I'll take a lot. So I just took a lot and I tripped. And it was the most loving, beautiful experience. It would be the first of many loving, beautiful experiences. That was the beginning of my existential crisis. But it wasn't a crisis. It was, of course, the world lied to me. Of course, we're in a capitalistic society. Of course, these medicines do this and they're beautiful and nothing is true and real anymore. Of course.
Of course. I get that so hard. An obvious deception.
And I can talk all day about Amanita and I can write a book. But until someone actually gets that mushroom in their body and gets that love and that feeling and that level of sentience from another living thing to where it speaks in you, it's something I can't explain. But I understand now why the church would say being full of the Holy Spirit. I prayed to God. I'm full of the mushroom spirit, and my store and community is called Mushroom Voice. And I don't pray to a deity. I ask the ancestors, and they're always there with the wisdom of universal consciousness through the fungal elders of this mushroom.
Well, I want you to go into a little bit what you mean by ancestors. What ancestors are you talking about?
My first experience was the mushrooms' ancestors. So it was their genetic history going back through their evolutionary process. And it took me back to what immediately presented as Loki and Thor. So Loki came on first as the jokester.
And is that because you humanize the experience and you're like, this is what I know? I know Loki and I know Thor. And this is what I'm going to ascribe to this fungal ancestry, which I've never even heard anyone talk about fungal ancestry, which is so cool. That is a cool, like I'm very science-based. I am very, show me the paper, show me the peer review.
Mm-hmm, me too.
But I'll be goddamned if I don't love the lore associated with mushrooms in particular.
A lot of people want to know, is it real or not? Is it real or not?
Yeah.
And that I think is the wrong question. It was very visceral and more real than anything that I've ever believed or thought or experienced in my life.
And this is while you were under the influence?
Mm-hmm. What came across was energy that was male, but joking not at my expense, but joking with me, showing me the levity of being human and why we were really supposed to be dancing together with the mushrooms, and showed me the ancestry of our relationship to each other. And then this darker, heavier energy came in and said, it's time to work now, and came in with a very fatherly, heavy, wise experience, kind of deity-ish, loving, but just said, okay, you need to sit down and you need to listen. And then instead of speaking through words, spoke through ideas, concepts, thoughts that resonated as energy and feeling in my body as it was coming across. To answer your question, yeah, I mean, I ascribed it to those two people because I know those stories. I'm sure there's analogous beings in all the other cultures that use this mushroom, but it just came across as a very Nordic experience, even though I found them here on Georgia land. If you find one of them, you find all of them. They're the same. That's the ancestors. Yeah. That it goes back through that lineage across the Bering Strait, across, the Sami people in Siberia, their culture, and the Nordic culture. And all of these people, before modern white people started wiping out indigenous cultures, they coexisted. Yeah. And the Norse used this mushroom. And it made me so interested in ancestry that I actually wound up getting my DNA done, and I'm 85% Nordic. Yeah. So how do you separate my ancestry from how it resonated in me from the mushroom's ancestry? And I think that's why some of us resonate more with certain entheogens than others, because they speak to our genetic heritage and our culture and our DNA. And in America, we're such a melting pot here of genetics. And it's why a lot of us are getting our DNA done, because we do want to know where we came from. Do you think that mushrooms know you to that degree? Are mushrooms respectful of culture? My conversations with the Amanita, they almost immediately from the very beginning, started talking to me about the history of humans and them from thousands of years ago, and talking about how beautiful it used to be. And they've shown me mental video of the relationships that we have had with them. And then they said, it's been a long time since the divorce and we miss you and want you to come back. And they word it like, since you left the forest and we've missed you. The bulk of humans today have left the forest.
So was it when we started farming?
I don't know. They just show me imagery of forests and fires and dancing and drums, and at least 2,000 years ago, before we decided to start raping and pillaging and burning it all down.
Cities.
And creating concrete jungles. And we quit playing and dancing with them, honoring the power of the solstices and the equinoxes. That's also one of the first early things they told me, was the importance of these celestial events and how powerful they really are. And being science-based, I immediately went to horoscopes and thought, well, that's not a thing, but I'm willing to listen because they've saved my life. I owe them the audience. And they said, no, it's not about reading cards or giving these stars names and saying what month you were born by the Gregorian calendar is also going to correspond to some other thing. They said there's power in the movement of these celestial bodies, and you cannot separate yourself from that pull and that energy. And they said, you already know that the full moon affects you. Well, the earth has its own energy, which is affecting you. And when these planetary bodies are in motion all the time, this is all that energy that's moving through you because you got born into it. You're here and you're part of this energetic soup that's in motion all the time. And you can't separate your physical genetic lineage and evolution of thousands of years of humans using these solstice events and equinox events as times of coming together and putting all that energy into gratitude for these celestial bodies and events and each other and the earth and the mushroom in these celebratory occasions over thousands of years. You don't just remove that from your physical being in 15 or 20 generations. You can't. And your body knows that. And your body is waiting to work with these events again. And we're coming back to remind you. We miss you. We miss the camaraderie. And we watched you have your babies and make your little liaisons and connections with each other. And we watched you fight. And we used these opportunities to teach you how to love. And then you left. And look at you. You're broken. It's time to come home, and we will leave the forest and we will come find you. And that's what they do. They grow now where there's disturbed soil, parking lots, edges of forest, the trails, and anywhere they can go to get people's attention. They're trying to ask us to come back home. And home is whatever that practice is for you, because it does grow in South America, not just northern latitudes. The closer to the equator, clearly, the warmer it is and the fewer of them that they're going to be because they are a colder weather mushroom, right. Even though they do grow down in Florida and Alabama. The Persicenas do in December because it does get a little chilly there. But they're in South America too. They're in the Southern Hemisphere too. Jasper from Fungi Academy, he talks about that, the artifacts that we have relating to this mushroom in South America, early artifacts. And then recently it made its way to Australia on pine trees, going to pine plantations down there. But it is a world colonizer. The question is just where, when. So some people will have a cultural connection to it and some people won't. And I think that might be why some medicines some people vibe with some and not others is, their genetics and their history and their ancestry of who worked with that medicine versus another. There's a medicine for everyone.
That'd be an interesting thing to take a look at is where are things natively popping up? What are they? And are they hallucinogenic in nature?
And I also wonder, is that why I have no problem at all working with Amanita because of my lineage and with psilocybin because it's grown everywhere that I've been. But I don't feel the call to work with ayahuasca. Not yet. I may out of a sense of purpose because I think that I know what it would do for me, but I don't feel it in my body the way I feel it with these mushrooms. I feel just really deeply, anciently connected to them.
That's fascinating. Can you describe the differences between using Amanita Muscaria and psilocybin?
Well, there's 3 medicines in Amanita Muscaria. There's ibotenic acid, which is what it's like in its raw, natural state. And then when you dry it, you only convert 20 to 30% of that over to muscimol. Then there's muscimol, which if you do a full conversion, which is not easy, Takes some work to get into a full muscimol state. So those are the two polar sides of the mushroom. And ibotenic acid is the upside, the glutamate and cholinergic side. And then muscimol is the GABA side. So an analog of it would be, an analogous drug would be benzodiazepines, man-made. Those two have their place, but they're not the main medicine in it, because you've got to really need medicine like ibotenic acid for ADD, ADHD, focus, gamma flow states, high attention states. And like I could just break off a piece and just like a thumbnail sized piece and eat it in the morning. And that's the Russian way to use it. And Baba Masha's book, she talks about that. And that's most of her microdosing protocols is using it like this. And then a full conversion into muscimol, that's a total down, come down side of it. If you're having panic attacks, it is the perfect medicine. And it's very healing. But the best medicine is the 50-50 in between. So if you make the tea, we just boil it in water, simmer it in water, for 20 to 30 minutes. You can start there, starting really small. And if you add acid to it, anything 2.4 or lower is going to convert a lot of that. So you can get a good, I would say 50 to 60, just round numbers in general that way. And once you do that, you've got a third medicine, which is this partially converted mix where these two medicines talk to each other and they work with your body and your receptors by working on all of your fight or flight systems. So your entire glutamate system and cholinergic, which then gets into your adrenals, adrenergic, and then GABAergic. All of these things are having conversations simultaneously, and it feels adaptogenic. It feels balancing. It feels like it's healing receptors. It feels like it's healing my brain, my memory, my processing ability. It's the best of both medicines without the heaviness of both medicines, with the wisdom of both medicines, with this layered healing that's happening through a living medicine that modern pharmacology does not understand. And people that use living medicine do. It's a conversation that's happening inside your body.
And so how is that different than magic mushrooms? Is that a different experience?
It is to me, because with psilocybin, it feels like instead of it being different medicines in one package, psilocybin feels like it's one medicine. It's one jumping off point that takes you in many directions once you're gone. This is a very earth-based mushroom, very get in your body mushroom, a very human mushroom, very own your ego, own your space, own your emotions, own your humanness, own being on the planet. You incarnated, let's fucking do it. Let's go. Yeah. Let's be human. And that life force energy that I was talking about, that's what this wants you to do. Embrace, be your power, own your power up and spread it out and take up space, because power isn't corrupt. People get corrupt using their power, but power itself isn't corrupt. Power made this. And this, I hope, is going to be a force for good in the world. My power enables me to love people and to be authentic now as an autistic person. And be okay with the criticism of it. Like, that's power. That's what power can do, right? But the psilocybin, they're like, you need a break from being human and we need to talk.
Oh my gosh.
And then they're like, let's go. And then the next thing you know, you're not here anymore. You're there. And they start by opening you up and taking shit out and putting shit in and going, just watch this for a moment. You see the flower? The flower pretty? Watch the flower. And then they're going to like work and tinker and do some shit.
They're the Tinkerbells of the forest. They're like, let me get in there. Let me get my tools.
We need all of these medicines, because while this gives me the perspective of what it means to be human, and that time is what we're creating, and that we are creating our reality through time and messing with the earth and space-time continuum, they teach me that. The psilocybins give me perspective and permission to stop being human, to get out of my body and let my soul breathe, take a break from the oppressiveness that can be the space-time gravity continuum, and let me take a break. And they bring me home. They take me out, like a timeout in a game. And they're like, okay, let's talk about what's going on the field. What's going on out there is this. And you really need to breathe because you're supposed to be having fun and you're not. And then they say, look, you fucked up here, and that's not cool over there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're letting people do this over here when in reality you wanted this over there. So can we like see this from a distant perspective now? Do you see like why it's really important that you get this right? And it's like, oh, right. I get that now. It was all a game. It was a story. It's a storyline. I really was supposed to just enjoy it and really love this process. And then once that trip and the work and all of this stuff is done and they let you get back in your body somewhat, that's when they're like, okay, let's talk about Earth. The trees are alive. They love you. They're sentient. They're carrying on conversations. Maybe you want to go say hi. And then people crave being around the trees. And then anyone that's done psilocybin and gotten around a tree, they're like, oh, they talk. They're real. They're alive. Oh my God. And they never see the forest the same way again. And they start to realize all of these things are sentient. They all have full, rich lives and they're living them. And they are just as appalled that we walk by them and act like they're not there as you would be if a neighbor just trespassed on your front porch and acted like you weren't there.
Right.
And it's after that, like you really just go off the woo deep end because they show you other beings in other realms that you get to know as beautiful and helpful. And they take on insectoid-like appearances and some are machine looking, the machine elf people. And they've all helped me in one way or another. And it depends on the strain that you take, like the Smurfs. I've met some of the Smurfs and they're just cute and hilarious. And they like to fuck with you and they think it's hilarious. But like the praying mantis entities, they tend to come from penis envy and they're rough, but they love you and they really, really care. And they just hate it for you that you're having to suffer. But they will show up and do that work with you and hold you while they hurt you to help you learn. And the love and the compassion that comes across. Like once you know and you develop intimate relationships with these beings, you really get out of being human. You really learn to just go, it's not a big deal. Like drop the ketchup and break it all over the kitchen floor because it's really not a big deal. It's just not.
Well, if you think about it, this planet isn't really that big of a deal.
Yeah.
There's a billion like it, relatively certain. I'm 100% positive that all life came here through an asteroid. It was like, right on. Eventually you're going to get hit by an asteroid if you're, doing planet things. If you're big banging all over the place, you're going to get hit by an asteroid, right? And asteroids have life. They have mycelium. And what I think about evolution is that, we're this like highly evolved thing, so we're dinosaurs, so is a cat, we're so highly evolved, like so many things happen. But mushrooms are kind of who they always were. I'm sure that there's always been a survival of the fittest out there in a mycorrhizal way that we'll never understand. Certainly saprobically there is. But they're just simple and they've always been who they are. And I don't think that their evolution has necessarily been physical the way ours has. They didn't get taller. They didn't get a voice box. It's like, the lower organisms teach us so much about doing what and doing it really well. And so
that's cute that you think they're the lower organisms.
I know. But that's just a term. That's just a science term. But a lower organism who's less complicated is what I mean by lower. They don't have kidneys.
High needs, meat sack.
Yeah, I'm not bashing on low organisms. I'm sort of just saying, why did we have to make it this complicated? So if they're not busy evolving physically, they've had time, all of these billions of years, and that's just here, to develop a consciousness. Can I say that without getting laughed at?
Let's see. Chapter 8 of Dosing Amanita Muscaria, What to Expect. The sentience of fungi.
Well, can you imagine what we would be capable of in terms of a collective consciousness if we weren't busy doing gallbladders, and it's like, and the socialness that we've done. It's just, there's so much that we've done. So,
but once you use psilocybin, the way that I communicate with these is one thing. It's by large concepts instead of one word at a time. But with psilocybin, the way they communicate is these concepts come across with sound, energy, and geometry. And so I will be working with one of these entities, and then it will send these geometric shapes outward into me that are working in with my own internal geometry. And then it yanks stuff out. It's extremely painful. But then new geometry comes in and locks in with my geometry and fills it with new information. And you're understanding it mathematically, geometrically. The color has information, the feeling of it. The energetic vibration is also giving you information. You're downloading and getting information in so many dimensional ways that create a whole understanding that defies this very simple way that we've developed to communicate. We are the simple beings. This is how they're communicating. And when you experience that level of communication, you really feel dumb. And then when you see what they're capable of with that communication, they heal you. They help you understand layers and layers of reality that you would never have had access to, which is why I think they are not medicine for sick people with trauma, but the sick people with trauma have to get that out before we can begin the conversations that we all should be having with them. And I'm only just now approaching the beginning of that by getting rid of my trauma, healing it, working with them all these years to begin to approach the real conversations that they want to have here. It is the medicine that makes us real humans and whole and living in all of the capacities that we were supposed to be here living in, not just a meat sack with a body with sound and sight. But we were supposed to be communicating in all of these ways this whole time, using the sun, the earth, the fire, communicating with all of the living sentient things around us, like the wind and the water. Like they're also sentient. And we were supposed to be understanding sacred geometry and working with it. And we were supposed to understand that the colors we see are the rudimentary mixing colors and that the real colors are actually alive. And we're supposed to use this knowledge with reality and the equinoxes and the solstices and other humans to raise our vibration as a species so that we are no longer destroying this planet, but living in harmony with it and raising its vibration the way the other living things do. And we're making the other living things sick now. And that's what these entheogens are supposed to be reminding us and getting us plugged back in and back online so that we can actually live a good life here the way we were supposed to live it. And that's why I think you should do mushrooms.
I don't want to shit my pants.
Well, then don't. You don't have to take that many. I've taken 10 grams and did not shit my pants.
Okay.
These gave me a gastric issue because I purposefully was pushing my ibotenic acid intake to higher and higher levels to find where my limit was in that 50-50 mix. And they will get your gut because that's where they'll work, you know, in your trauma, in your gut. And you'll reach a point where you need to dump all of that. But because I knew that going in, I never got far from the restroom. So I didn't shit my pants. I shit in the toilet. The only medicine that I know of that really makes you unable to control your gastric system is ayahuasca. So when it comes to the mushrooms, like some people throw up with psilocybin, but I think that if you fast, like there's no diet specific to Amanita. You can eat or not eat. But I think with psilocybin, I've always fasted the day that I'm going to use them. And then I've always extracted them through tea with lemon tech and then not eat the chitin, not eat the actual mushroom, unless my shaman teacher person who grew them and is giving them to me says you need to at least eat a few. Then I do it because they know better than I do. They have that relationship with them. Right. And even then, it's so few. It's not that many. And so I've never had a gastric issue like that. So if that's what you're worried about, if it's psilocybin, just fast and use the tea extract and lemon, you shouldn't. And even with 10 grams, I didn't.
I'm thinking 50th episode could be Gretchen tries a mushroom for the first time.
I think instead of putting it on something weird, like a man-made number, that maybe in one of your trips or vacations, wherever you are, I'll see if I know someone in the area and you can go meet the psilocybin. Just like talk to them growing as they're growing and just sit down and have a conversation with them about it.
I'm open-minded.
I mean, that's all we can be.
Yeah. Do they help you sleep? Because that would get me there.
Psilocybin is the opposite of sleep, but Amanita will help you sleep. The 50-50 tea mix, which is in here in the book, and the recipe is in it. Take it a couple hours before bed because that 50%, ibotenic acid, it gives you that energy in the evening to get your work done. But like I use it to turn the day down and get the dishes done and get last minute stuff put away. I didn't used to be that productive in the evening. Being autistic, I was always burned out by the evening. But if I take Amanita like around 7, I want to clean the house up. I want to straighten it up so that in the morning I don't have to deal with the mess or see a mess.
It's like a gift you're giving morning you.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it really gives you that motivation. It says, love your space.
Yeah, I really do believe that there's a connection with an organized, lovely space to the ability to human. I do. And I think, and not that I have like unrealistic standards of cleanliness or anything like that at all, but there is something about just like kind of waking up in the morning and liking what you see.
Well, you can have order without scrubbing your floors all the time.
Yes.
Just put shit away, man. Just get the dishes done and tidy up the things. Get shit up off the floor and at least shove it in a corner.
The problem with me is that if things go like get put away, I forget that they exist. That's
the ADD.
Yeah, it is. It's awful. But I feel like there could be like really cool interior design that would work with that, where like it's shallow, open shelving that looks nice, but you get to see everything. I have coping strategies like the drawers in my room with like my tank tops or whatever. I fold them so I can see every single one. And it's not because I'm an organized person. I'm not. But it's just, that's the only way I remember that shit exists. What I'm hearing is that Amanita is the workhorse, let's human a little better type of mushroom, whereas psilocybin is the fuck this shit. Let's go,
let's take a break.
Take a break. This is terrible. I love that description because, I haven't personally experienced either of these mushrooms, but I've never heard anyone talk about them that way. So that's really interesting. You're fabulous for bringing that here.
It's fun because I don't like housework. I've been doing it for so long. I'm sick of it. But once I take it, the medicine, I'm like, I really do love this. I really love the beauty in loving myself and loving my space and honoring it.
It's self-care.
It is. And I'm caring for my animals because I'm giving them a nice place and my kid and the neighborhood and the people around that drive by. Like I pick things up out of the yard and wind blows some trash across, I'll make sure to go get it. I want to say, I am not shaming you if you are struggling with mental health and you're barely alive. If you brushed your teeth today and that was your accomplishment, then you need to celebrate that because I've been there.
Yes.
Me talking like this today is the privilege of the result of the mushrooms seeking me out and me saying yes, and then willing to continue saying yes. Plus, whatever privileges that I'm riding on the back of my whiteness and being raised middle class. And those privileges, no matter how dark it got, no matter how much abuse I've had in my life, no matter how sick and fucked up and off the rails it all became, was better than what it would have been had I not had those privileges. So I am not telling everyone, you need to do this and this and this, and you need to take this and learn that, and take this and learn that, and clean your house every day. Like, I am not. I'm saying this is where I am today through a lot of hard work and suffering, and on the back of privilege that's on the back of others. And I'm aware of that. I've been broke most of my life, but because I wasn't raised broke, I had good dental care. I knew how to read food labels. I had a college education that enabled me to understand the science to make sense of what I was reading online. And I'm aware of that. So the only thing that I'm really trying to get across here is the mushroom loves the people and the forest and the living things. And the mushroom loves you. Do what you can to find the mushroom. It doesn't have to cost you a dime if you can harvest it in your area. And I have a video on amanitadreamer.net of where to find them in your area. And the description lists them. You can just go look. It doesn't cost anything. I purposefully made it that way because I didn't want other people who didn't have the background I had, to be able to get that information, because YouTube just snatching all that shit down.
Yeah.
I don't even ask for your email. Like, there's literally no barrier except an internet access. That's your one barrier. And then once you're over there, just watch or go read it on there and learn it. And then, you may have to buy them, the mushrooms themselves, but they shouldn't be more than $1 a gram.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very low cost entry thing. If you can afford 15 grams and you can pay the shipping for $20, you can get started and you can make the tea. The recipe's on the website. You can make enough to last you for 6 months. Like, keep 1/4 of it out and freeze the other 3/4 in separate containers and get it down and use it as you need it, or follow the protocol that I lay out. Again, free. Like, nobody wants you to suffer here.
Yeah.
And I am trying to create the lowest barrier to entry that I can physically create. I support myself with stuff like this and products I make because I want to keep all this as cheap and free as possible to pay for that expensive website and the bandwidth to support all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mushroomvoice.com then is just people who have the money to spend, join my community. We sit around and talk on Zooms all month long because they've got the ability to pay that money to support me and to then get that community for themselves. Or they've got the expendable income because they don't want to do it themselves to buy my products that I sell, and they want to support the free site for the people that don't have that income. So my products are not anything anyone needs. They're simply because I make them and sell them to support myself. So the things that I'm saying to you, I don't know if you can get there. I don't know where you're starting. I don't know where your bottom is. But I can tell you my bottom was pretty shitty after 10 years of benzos and being suicidal for a very, very, very long time, anorexic and a shell of a human being with zero mental health, with zero attention span or ability to remember anything. Literally, my whole life had to be written down as I lived it. That's where I was starting from with Amanita. And I have my brain back. I'm multitasking and writing a book and filming a documentary and making products and running this business and making all this content because of Amanita.